Hello friends, Amanda here. Welcome back to Handmade, not Hallmark, and today's card is the first card of my Christmas series for the 2025 season. I just love how this card turned out. It's super easy to do and you don't need any special dies. I hope you enjoy. Let's get into it. So the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to get all of my watercoloring finished first, so it had an opportunity to dry completely before I started messing with it. I am using the Winter Greenery set from Kristina, Werner, and Concord and Ninth. This is part of her new release that just came out. I love these big images, and I love the bold outlines on them. They make them really easy to color. You can use any coloring medium that you like. I just decided to go with some watercoloring today. I was really in the mood to kind of just sit down and play with my inks and watercolor and just sort of relax. But these would be pretty done with colored pencils or with Copic markers or any other kind of alcohol markers. Either, kind of medium would look great as well. So these are new stamps, so I did kind of rub my hands on them so I get a better impression. And I am using some Canson XL watercolor paper and my VersaFine Onyx Black ink today. Both are watercolor and watercoloring products. And I did stamp 2 panels and I did color both panels. I didn't use the big florals in this card today. I saved those for another card, but it's nice to have extras on hand. You definitely could use the big florals in this, but I just decided to go with the smaller ones. It worked out better for the card in the end. So stamp those down really good, got both of these panels cut out, and I just love how these images look. They're super fun, and like I said, mentioned earlier, I love the bold outlines on these. And they do come with coordinating dies, and they also have coordinating stencils. So if you're not really in the mood to color anything, you can easily use the stencils and color them in with your inks, which I think would be really fun and it would make this process go by a little faster. So if you wanted to make this card in multiples, I think using the stencils would be a better way to go. I am going to hit these with my heat gun a little bit just to help dry the process along a little bit. I did stamp them down twice, and watercolor paper, the ink takes a minute or two to dry, so I wanted to make sure it was nice and dry before I started with any of my watercoloring, just to be sure I didn't get any smudging. VersaFine ink usually doesn't, but I just like to be safe before I start coloring so I don't have to stamp it again. And then I'm going to be using Positively Saturated inks today from Simon Says Stamp. You can use any inks that you don't have to use inks. These ones just work really well for watercoloring. You can use Distress Oxide inks. You can use regular Distress inks. You can use actual watercolors. I don't do anything fancy with my watercoloring. I am not the best watercolor. I like the look of it. I'm not very good at doing the whole shading thing or, adding depth and dimension because I don't really have the patience for it. But in the end, I do like the way that it looks. Again, you could use regular watercolors. You could use distress crayons, anything like that to do the coloring. I am going to be using a watercolor brush from Tim Holtz. I've had this one for years. It works out great. And then I'm also going to put on some music for you guys to enjoy while I do the coloring, and we'll catch up when we're all finished. so now we're going to work on the shadow box portion of this card. So I'm starting with a piece of wood grain cardstock, and it is cut to 6 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to score it at a 1/2 inch and 1 inch from each side of the longer side, which would be the 6 1/4 inch side. And this is going to help create the shadow box look on our card. I found this video from Jennifer McGuire. It's a couple of years old, and I really wanted to give it a try. I tried to make it as a 5x7 card to start with, but my die cut machine won't let me cut 5x7 paper. So I just shrunk it down to a normal sized 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card, and it worked out just as good. And I'm using a die from Lawn Fawn. This is one of the inside out stitched rectangle dies. You can use any dies that you want in your stash to create the fun window look here. I just decided to go with a rectangle. I think an arch would look really pretty with this, and so would a circle or oval die, I think would look great as well. Once I ran that through my die cut machine, I'm going to go ahead and fold on those score lines. I'm going to fold in towards the card on the first fold and then pull it back on itself for the second fold. This is going to create that Z fold, which is going to give us that pop-up look for the shadow box die. And again, you can make this as a portrait or landscape card. It works both ways. It's super fun and easy, and I just love how this turned out. I'm definitely going to be using this design in some more cards later in the season, and even for some fall cards. So don't be surprised if you see this again. So if you missed out on anything, you can go back to the beginning of this section and watch it just to get the measurements right. But I'll also have them listed in the description box below. I wanted to reinforce the top part and the bottom part of this just because it's kind of thin, and I wanted to make sure it was nice and sturdy. So I'm just taking some pieces of acetate and attaching them to the top and bottom where those areas are thinnest, just again to give it some stability and make it a little bit more rigid. I'm going to be using a top folding A2 size note card cut out of some Neenah Desert Storm cardstock for my card base today, and I'm also using a background stamp from My Favorite Things. It's a Christmas text, but you can use any kind of text background, or you don't have to use text. You can use any kind of background that you want to have in the background, just to add some interest to what's going on inside the shadow box. You could do anything here. You could leave it blank as well. I just wanted to have a little bit of interest, so I'm stamping that down with some white pigment ink just to give some texture in the background, which I think would be really fun. And I'm kind of laying out my design here with these florals, and I just love how these look. I didn't end up using all of these pieces, and I think if I was able to create a 5x7 card, I would have been able to use more of these. But in the end, I really like the way that the card turned out. So I'm going to get my greeting stamped out here. I am going to be using a greeting from the new Season's Greetings sentiment set from Concord and 9th, and I just love all of these sentiments in here. They're nice, big, and bold. There's some that are a little bit smaller, but I really like all of these greetings, but I wanted to use something that was somewhat small and would fit into that space in between my two florals. So I used the Sending Holiday Cheer, and I'm stamping it down on some poppy cardstock, also from Concord and 9th, and I'm going to stamp it down with some Versamark ink, and I'm going to do some heat embossing. I really love this poppy color. It is so Christmas. I just love this so much. It's probably one of my new favorite reds. It's just so vibrant and festive, and I think it works really well with this card, and I plan on using this quite a bit this season. So I'm going to be using some Brutus Monroe Alabaster White embossing powder to do my heat embossing today, and then I'm also going to be using a coordinating die to cut it out. So that's another great thing about this set, is that they all have coordinating dies to cut out all of these images. And there's also a couple of extras in there as well. There's a snowflake and some kind of like greenery you can use to kind of jazz up your greetings if you're just going to use those as the focal point on your card. And I just, again, love how this turned out. It's super pretty. And I love that this one has like an arched die to it. And I think you can definitely use it for other greetings if you wanted to. I think it works really well to be used in multiple ways. So I'm going to go ahead and get my die out here and get that run through my die cut machine, and we can start getting our card assembled. now that we have all of our parts and pieces ready to go, I went ahead and added a piece of acetate across the center where I want to put my greeting, just so it has some stability behind it once we get it attached to the card. This works really great if you have something a little bit smaller for a greeting, but I wanted to make sure that everything was stabilized and had lots of support. I also went ahead on the smaller flaps on our Z-fold for our shadow box, added some double-sided adhesive. You could definitely use liquid glue here. It would give you a little bit more of a wiggle room, which I probably will do in the next time I do this, but this double-sided adhesive worked out just fine. So I just lined up the edge of that smaller Z-fold with the sides of my card base, and I apologize if my head gets in the way. I'm just making sure everything is nice and lined up, and it does fold flat, so you can put it still in an envelope and it'll mail just fine. And I love that there's a little arch in it, and it really creates that fun shadow box look, and I think this is super elegant. It's going to be a card that somebody's going to leave out, set up, and use as a decoration. So I'm going to use a couple of different kinds of adhesive here. I ended up starting with tape runner, then I switched to liquid glue, and I definitely recommend a liquid glue here instead of a tape runner, only because after I let this card dry and I checked on it the next day, the tape runner did pop off a little bit. So I do recommend a nice strong liquid adhesive to do all of your gluing here, just to make sure that everything stays in place where you'd like it. So I'm just going to go through and add all my pieces on here where I feel they look the best, and we can work on the other elements of the card too. Once I was happy with the arrangement of all of my florals, I'm going to get my sentiment adhered down next. And I really didn't want to cut off the pieces on the edges of my card, but once I did, I was happy that I did, just to kind of clean it up, and it makes it look really, really nice. But first we're going to get my sentiment added on here. Now you could use liquid glue here, but I was afraid of it oozing into the back in that background piece, and so I just decided to use some nice double-sided adhesive. It's probably not necessary because I had room on either side of this that I could have glued it to the floral pieces that are sticking down, but having that piece of acetate in between really helped stabilize everything and made sure that nothing was going to move and it didn't kind of like sink. Gives it some nice support behind it. There you can see our card is coming together nicely. Just going to add a little bit more liquid adhesive to the card, and here's where I was deciding whether or not I wanted to trim everything off, and I did decide to do that, and I like the way that it turned out. Again, if I had done a 5x7 card, I would have had more room to put more of these florals, but in the end I really do like the way that it turned out. Gonna go ahead and trim off those other pieces here, and we can start working on some of the fun finishing details for this card. And you can see here, after I get it all trimmed up, it frames it up nicely. Okay, so I'm going to get my station cleaned up here, and then we can start on the finishing details for this card, which is one of my favorite things to do when it comes to card making. And I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle and shine to the card. I'm going to add a little bit of some liquid aqua shimmer pen from Nouveau, and I'm going to add it to the berry sections here. And then I'm going to add some to the poinsettias as well, just a hint here or there after I glue this piece down because it wasn't wanting to stay. So I added a little bit more adhesive to the back of that and it worked out just fine. And then, just like I said, I'm going to go around and add a little bit of shimmer and shine. Now I have to be careful because, again, this is watercolor, so it is going to react a little bit to this because it is some type of moisture. But if you're really careful and you take your time, you can add some of that shine and it works out just fine. So once I'm happy with that part, I'm going to go in and add some of my favorite sequins. This is my favorite sequin mix. I use it every holiday season, and I just feel like it works perfectly for this card. I wanted to add a little bit of shine to the background piece or inside the shadow box, and a few of these gold sequins I think works out perfectly. I just love the way that they look. It adds that perfect shine and a little bit of gold that I love on all these holiday cards. And I'm really excited for this year for holiday cards. I don't have a set schedule this year. I don't plan on doing kind of like card 1, card 2, whatever I have done in the past. and I don't plan on doing like a Monday through Friday. I am just going to create and post. Like I said, I don't have a set schedule. It just doesn't work out for me to kind of schedule myself just because of my life and the things that I've got going on. So once I had that all finished, I realized that my one poinsettia doesn't have any snow on it. I added a little bit of snow right after I had die cut them, just to add a little bit of interest, and that one didn't have any on it. So I went ahead and pulled out some picket fence white paint and added that. And then lastly, I'm going to add some pale gold Nouveau drops to my poinsettias, and that will finish up this card for today. I really hope you guys enjoyed this first card of my holiday series. If you did, please consider hitting that like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here at my YouTube channel. I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you again real soon in the next one. Bye! On screen, I've got a few videos that I think you'll enjoy. Please consider hitting the like button as well as the subscribe so you don't miss out on any more videos here at my YouTube channel.